Welcome to the Trader, a Traitors podcast. I'm Matthew, I'm a writer working in unscripted TV development, and this podcast is mainly dedicated to English-speaking versions of the TV phenomenon The Traitors, although we have also covered The Traitors India and some other strategy reality competition shows like Netflix's Million Dollar Secret and ITV's Genius Game. This season of the podcast is dedicated to Celebrity Traitors UK, although we are also now simultaneously covering The Traitors Canada because season 3 of that version of the show has begun as of October the 22nd. David Bloomberg, who is a regular co-host, is taking over control for episode 1, and I will be rejoining from next week onwards. Today, I will be joined by a guest co-host who's going to help me analyse episode 6 of Celebrity Traitors. We're going to look at the gameplay, the tactics, the main events, and we might even be lying to each other along the way. And my guest co-host today should be very good at that very thing. Let's find out why and who it is. My guest is Jane Massey, a retired police officer, and it's something that she did for 25 years and is originally from England, but now lives in New Zealand, where, a couple of years ago, she took part in season 2 of The Traitors New Zealand. Jane was selected in the opening episode as a traitor, but I will not reveal her fate or how far in the game Jane made it. You'll have to go and watch, and it's a brilliant season. I will say that Jane plays a crucial role, which is one of the reasons it's one of my all-time fave seasons of the show. And Jane, you've been on the podcast before. Welcome back.
Yeah, hi Matthew, nice to be back. Yeah, it's really interesting. I'm totally loving this series, so it's nice to get back and talk about episode 6 because I can't talk about it enough, to be honest.
Good, good. And I last time I spoke to you, we chatted a bit about we knew the cast and we talked a little bit
Mm.
about who we were looking forward to seeing. So one of your favourites, I think, is gone, Claire, sadly. But I think Alan was someone else you were excited to see. So are you
Yes.
impressed with Alan so far as a traitor?
So impressed, so impressed. I mean, when he was first selected, I thought, oh no, this is it. He's out next episode. And especially when we had the first thing of him sweating, drinking his rosé wine, but I don't know what you think, but I think he's been amazing. He's grown into the role, like he said. I think in this episode, oh, I just can't stop smiling. I mean, he's almost laughing in their faces, isn't he? But because he's Alan Carr, he's getting away with it. And
Yeah.
yeah, well, we'll talk about it. He does do a huge slip up in this episode, but apart from that, I think he's been brilliant, and I've absolutely loved him in this. I love him anyway, but he's just beyond my expectations. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think he's done well?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. He is really surprised everyone, I think. And we'll get to it. There's something that he messes up a bit in this episode, and I don't know how much of a big deal it's going
Yeah.
to be. I don't know if they're tricking us, and
Hmm.
maybe like after tomorrow, no one will mention it again, or if it's gonna become a problem. I don't know. We'll see. But generally, I think he's one of the least suspected. I would say I don't even know if he's. I think he's had like one or two, maybe two votes across the round tables.
Yeah, one or two. Yeah, maybe Claire voted for him because that's when
Yeah,
he sniped back at her. And did Celia vote for him? I can't remember, but at the most he's had two. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. So fantastic.
yeah, doing pretty well. And also, Jane, you're joining me for a really special episode because this is the 200th episode of the podcast. So it's I can't
Yeah.
quite
Oh,
can't quite believe it's we've got to that point. So
wow.
across, in case you're listening,
Congratulations.
thinking. Yeah, you might be wondering how can there be 200 episodes? There's only been like three series of The Traitors if you're in the UK, but of course the podcast has covered Traitors US and New Zealand, which of course Jane was on, and Canada, Australia. We even covered Traitors India, so there are all these other different versions and a lot of them are on BBC iPlayer in the UK if that's where you are. So lots more series to go back and watch if you are enjoying this series, I would say. So 200 episodes, pretty impressed. So
Wow.
there you
Yeah,
go.
that's really good.
And today we are going to talk about episode 6 of Celebrity Traitors. Before we dive right into it, we're going to initiate our podcast game, The Trader Traitor. The game is inspired by Traitors viewers' claims that they could easily spot the traitors' lies and deceptions and that the faithful are fools. So we're going to play our own game of secrecy and betrayal. The mission for Jane and I from here on in is to tell one little sneaky lie to each other, or it could be a big lie. It has to be a fabrication, a complete made-up fact. Could be about the traitors, could be about anything. Here's an example. I could lie and say that 2 days ago, I met Stephen Fry in Tesco and he accidentally spoiled the outcome of this episode for me before I'd seen it. However, I couldn't lie and say that I wasn't mad when my partner actually spoiled the outcome of this episode for me, when in reality, I was fuming. That would be a fake opinion. So we're looking for fake facts and false pieces of information rather than just pretend thoughts and feelings. Listeners, it's time to put your skills to the test and see if anything lights up your radar while Jane and I are talking. And at the end of the episode, we'll test our traitor hunting abilities and see if we can successfully catch and banish the other. Jane, we've played before, we're going to play again. Are you ready to betray me?
I am ready, yeah.
Our game begins now. I should be fearful because you were an actual traitor in the game, but we'll see how it goes. It's time for us to get into episode 6 of Celebrity Traitors UK. We start off with our usual recap. We are reminded Charlotte kind of made traitors history by being the first faithful murdered, not by the traitors, but by a banshee in the night. Ooh. And Mark and Rugby Joe came under a bit of suspicion. Well, in the mission, Jonathan, David, Lucy, and Nick all won shields. And at the round table, we ended with a first for English-speaking traitors, as far as I remember. Maybe I'm wrong. An unbroken tie in votes, meaning that Mark and David both awaited their fate by chance. I'm going to immediately ask you a traitor's question, Jane, based on your experience. Was it ever explained to you and your cast what would happen if this situation came up, that there was a tie that just couldn't be broken?
Not that I remember. No, we did have a tie, but I don't remember them actually saying what would happen. And I'm guessing because it was a couple of years ago, they probably would have just had to quickly think on the spot if it had happened. But I don't think there is any. I think it's the chance is agreed across all the franchises, but how they do it is, I guess, up to them. And this was the chess of chance, wasn't it? This
Yeah,
one.
chest of chance. Yeah, we've never really had a chance to see how it would play out. Claudia had left at the end of the last episode, and then she comes with these two boxes. I am wondering if they are going to play Russian roulette. But no, one contains a shield and one doesn't. And actually, funnily enough, didn't even occur to me. One of our listeners, Zach, who comments quite often, sent me a message saying, "Hey, you know that they're basically doing what I've started doing at the end of these podcast episodes with a shield and just putting one in my hand and saying pick one." So that was a nice little coincidence there. Didn't
Yeah.
know that. So David, they decide that David should just choose first. I mean, there's not really any strategy in it. It's completely random. There's lots of build up, lots of clips of both of the players telling us that they both don't want to go. Claudia does a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 countdown. They open, and it's David who has the shield, which means it's all over for Mark. Poor Mark. What did you? It's our last chance to talk about him, really. So, Jane, what did you think of Mark? Did you like him? Did you find he's
Thanks,
overacting and
Mark.
annoying?
No, I really liked Mark, and I think it's been brought up, and I think it's a valid point. Mark is a really accomplished actor. I've seen him in lots of things. He's very, I know he often plays the bad guy, but and so I think as a good actor, would he really be overacting that much, which they were accusing him of? I don't think he
Yeah.
would be. So if they thought about it a bit more practically, then that was just him. He was passionate about the game. When he was having his shed collapse after the round tables, it was genuine. So I felt bad for him. I really liked him, and it's a rubbish way to go, isn't it? I know they've got to do this chance; they can't go on forever. But personally, I would have preferred him to stay and David to leave, just because David, edited wise, anyway, was a bit boring. I thought. Sorry, David. I'm sure it's lovely, but he wasn't edited to be particularly. He wasn't a main character. He wasn't particularly fun. I think we got a lot of mileage out of Mark.
Yeah, I would agree. David is just a quieter person, so there's not as much
Yeah.
to see on TV, and he's very clever, obviously, but he doesn't
Yeah.
sort of provide lots of
No,
really watchable moments as far as we've
he
seen.
didn't make me
So
lol ever.
exactly. So poor Mark is gone, and you're right. That's a great point. That if yeah, he's a really good actor. Why would he be acting so poorly? Like he wouldn't be making it that obvious. So it's a shame that they didn't see it that way. He stands up to give his speech goodbye. He says, I think you're all brilliant and have honestly had the best time. Thank you for making it so memorable. I am, and always have been, and always wanted to be, a faithful. Because, of course, that's what they accused him of, that they couldn't believe that he said he wanted to be a faithful if he was a big super fan
Yeah.
of the show. So, as he's leaving, there's Stephen says, "Oh, I knew it," and he sort of gestures to Jonathan, saying, "We knew it." And Lucy's going, "Well, how? But how do you know it?" And she does this later in the episode as well, when Celia says something about Stephen, I think, and Lucy's going, "But how? How do you know this?" So Claudia really, she's got to act like she's mad at them, right? So she's saying, "Faithful, you're breaking my heart. You're not getting it. What are you not seeing?" And I suppose a lot of viewers and listeners have said this. That I guess it kind of loses a bit of impact when you know the money's all for charity. So it kind of doesn't matter who wins. Like it's still exciting and fun, but
I disagree with that, and I've heard a lot of people say that. And the reason I disagree is because you can see how much they're into it. You know, they
mm,
could have gone in there not giving a damn. And I'm sorry for any US fans, but you see the US one, a version with mostly reality stars, and I don't think they really care what happens. It's not for charity anyway, but I
mm,
don't think they care anyway. But I think you can see how much into it they are. And a lot of them have watched it, a lot of them are fans. And I really think, they've all got quite big egos, because
mm,
they're celebrities. They want to do well. So I think they really are invested. Maybe not because for the charity, for the right reasons, but for their own selfish reasons, which there's nothing wrong with that. I think they want to do really well. So I kind of disagree
mm.
with that.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense actually. That yeah, there's a sense of ego, and
Yeah.
they probably want to just stay in it as long as possible.
Yeah.
So they do desperately want to not be murdered or banished just for their own. It's like they're enjoying the game and they want to be on the show and they want to make it to the end. So I guess I hadn't thought
Yeah,
of
and
it that way. That is true.
I was going to say, and the other thing I'd say, having been in that position, obviously not anywhere, I'm not a celebrity, but you do get, it encompasses you the whole game. You know, you've done the live experience, it was only a minor one, but even then, and I just think, people are saying they don't have access to their phones. They have exactly the same rules that we had in the non-celebrity version, and I think it just you get so invested in the game that I think it doesn't matter who you are. You could be the biggest celebrity in the world. I think you just get so involved, you want to do well. And I
Yeah.
think unless you're in the game, it's really hard to kind of describe that feeling.
Yeah. And Jane, I hope that wasn't your lie when you said you're not a celebrity. You're a celebrity amongst the traitors community. So you're famous to us. uh, we
Thank you.
we get a little bit of Alan fake apologizing. He's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And of course they're just all like, "No, Alan, don't you be sorry. Don't you didn't do anything wrong." And he's in his interview, he's saying well, he does feel bad for Mark. He says Mark's a lovely guy, and says the list of faithfuls is going down, but so is his Christmas card list. Uh, there are more. I'll talk about Alan. I mean, obviously throughout, but there are more great lines from Alan in this episode. He's just. You could do a whole compilation. You could do like a half-hour compilation of just the hilarious things that Alan says throughout this series. I'm looking forward to whoever makes that. So we leave the round table. We have a bit of a debrief. We're in the bar. And also, actually, I'm talking about Alan delivering great lines. Celia delivers this really funny line because Alan hands her a glass of rosé and she just goes, I don't like this glass. I'm sorry, I can't stand it. And I thought, I aspire to be able to say things like that and no one gets annoyed at me and they just go, oh God, get in the
Yes.
right glass. So
Yes.
I'm not mad
I
at Celia.
can't.
She is absolutely an icon. And while they're in the bar, there's David, Celia, and Lucy having a little chat about, David feels like it's likely he's going to get banished tomorrow anyway, but Lucy points out, well, we do tend to move on very quickly, and that always happens. It's not just in this
Mhm.
series. Across Traitor series, that seems to be the pattern that someone almost gets banished, and so you would naturally assume, well, if they just escape this time, everyone will go for them next. And it so often just veers within 24 hours, completely veers away in another direction. So, I mean, Lucy's at least got that right. That David getting 4 votes tonight, or whatever it was, didn't mean anything for tomorrow, really. Outside, we've got Rugby Joe saying that, yet again, he's looking at Jonathan. Well, Comedy Joe still thinks it's David. Andy thinks he's going to be murdered tonight. And inside, Lucy's talking to Kat. I get the impression that Lucy and Kat get on really well because there's a few scenes of them just on their own having little whispers and giggles to each other and really confiding in each other. So Lucy talks to Kat and says, maybe we're trying too hard. Maybe we're trying to be really clever and look for the smallest mistakes that the traitors make. And she said, why don't we just do the obvious? Maybe it is just Jonathan. And I'm sort of screaming at the TV, like, yes, Lucy, yes, just do the
Same.
obvious.
Yep.
But every time he slips away. It's midnight then, and we've got some. They always play these cover songs and like sort of slowed down, creepy versions of songs. They've got this cover of Amy Winehouse's "Back to Black." It's this really horrible, like male indie cover. I don't like it at all. We head to the turret. The traitors realize how hard things are getting, and they chat a bit about, well, who had the shields, who are our other options, and they start to think about who they might murder. We've got Comedy Joe. They think that would cast suspicion on David, but they also recognise Joe as being quite defensive of Jonathan, so maybe they should keep him around. They talk about Kate. Jonathan suggests Kate anyway, and Alan and Kat are just like, no, no. Because I think Jonathan says, maybe she's going to catch on to, and they're like, no, no, just leave her, leave her. And Jonathan says, well, it would confuse people at least, like maybe it would throw everyone off. And they finally come to Stephen, and Alan cracks me up when he just says, should we just get on with it and kill him? And he's like, it'll blow everyone's mind, and it'll take them a couple of days to get over it. But they realise that might cause a problem for Jonathan because everyone's got this big dogs theory, and if Stephen goes and they realise he's a faithful, then naturally might everyone just turn on Jonathan. And we finish up with Alan referring to Stephen simply as Stephen Fry. And Jonathan goes, Sir Stephen Fry to you. And Alan says, what's a knighthood when you're dead? And off we go. Uh,
Yeah.
anyone not watching on YouTube, I should say, you don't have the pleasure of seeing that Jane has like this beautiful. Your dog's still a puppy.
Oh, he's 15 months now, but he's just had a haircut,
Oh,
so
well, he's a puppy to me. So
yeah.
I just think
He's
all dogs are
very
puppies.
he's been desperate to get on my lap, so I'll just let him up so he'll be
Oh,
quiet.
he's very sweet. This could be your lie, and that's not your dog at all. But I know you've mentioned the dog before, and I've heard the dog before,
Yeah,
so I believe this is real. Uh,
he is my
so
dog.
it's time for breakfast. Next day, Rugby Joe, Lucy, David, Cat first to appear. David realizes how badly they're doing, and he says this a few times in the episode. He kind of feels like the faithful are doomed already. He reckons it's just too late to pull it back. We can talk a bit more about that towards the end, maybe. Rugby Joe, for the second time out of what's going to be 50 times in this episode, talks about Jonathan. What do you guys think of Jonathan? And David sort of disagrees, and Rugby Joe then turns on him for suggesting, well, you said I might be a traitor last night. Alan, Celia, and Nick are the next group. Alan, and this is, you mentioned this, Jane, that Alan himself says, God, look at me. Like, when I first started out, I was sweating all the time, my glasses were
Yeah.
steaming up. Now, I got rid of Mark last night, not a bead of sweat. So I think
Yeah.
even he realizes he's got the hang of it. He's actually really enjoying it. I mean, for you, so again, I don't want to spoil too much about your season, but you were picked as a traitor right at the beginning, so that's not a
Yeah.
spoiler. Did it For you, does it become easier as you go along? Does it get worse as you go on? Is it different
I think it,
depending on the scenario?
yeah. I didn't find it easy at all because I didn't find it easy because you do genuinely come to like these people that you're with, even though you
Mm,
don't have lots of interaction off camera because it's so strict. You do sort of care and create relationships. So I didn't find it easy. I found it fairly easy to murder. But it is stressful. No, I don't think there's ever a time where I enjoyed it. I know Whitney, sorry, who is one of ours traitors. I won't do spoilers, but she said she really enjoyed it. But I never. I'm glad I was a traitor, but I never got to that stage where I was confident enough to think,
mm,
"Oh, I'm loving this." So good on Alan for that. But yeah, I guess I'm not that sort of person. And also, it didn't help with me. And again, it's not a spoiler, but our traitors team didn't work together. Whereas at least they are so far. They're all working together, aren't they? They're
mhm.
not throwing each other under the bus,
Yeah.
which
Not yet,
definitely
anyway.
helps. But yeah, no, exactly. Well, yeah, they're 6 episodes in. It's pretty good.
Yeah, yeah, they're doing well as a team,
Yeah.
and I, yeah, I guess the only thing that worries me is when Alan says things like this. Now, I don't want him to get too confident or too relaxed. Like I
Yes.
want him to continue to
Mm.
do well. So
Yeah.
there's actually even a moment we cut back to Celia talking to Alan, and she says, "I adore you, Alan, but I did wake up
Yes.
wondering about you this morning. You're much cleverer than
Mm.
you let on." And they have a bit of a joke about it, and Rugby Joe says, "Well, he's not pretending to be silly or whatever it is." Um,
Yes.
and Jonathan and Kate arrive next. Kate doing her usual sort of very over the top, "Lovely to be here," and I think she's sort of confused when she comes in because of the reaction is just them trying to figure out, wait, she's back, so who's not back? And she wonders what this means. But they're not the last people to arrive. It's only Stephen or Joe left. This is, I had kind of had this, I had a few things in this episode spoiled for me, so it wasn't quite as exciting for me to watch. I kind of knew it was coming. Alan's doing his best, they wouldn't kill Stephen. Would they kill Stephen? Of course, he knows exactly what's going to happen. And everyone is speculating and wondering, if Stephen comes back, does that make him look more suspicious? I mean, I don't really know why. He doesn't get to choose walking in last. He's no more suspicious than anyone else, but I
No.
guess they already, some of them had suspicions of him anyway. And then Stephen arrives, meaning that Joe Wilkinson is no more. We get our flashback to the traitors. They do just agree that he's very clever and eventually might catch on to them and unravel
Mm.
them. We see Joe receiving his letter and he just sort of laughs it off and says, yeah, well, I sort of expected it was because I was quite lippy last night. And he's obviously asked to say something like, "What's your message for the traitors?" And he just says,
Yeah.
"What's the turret like?" So I'm not
Yeah.
surprised. Not surprised. He is
No,
very funny.
shame. I like Joe.
Yeah, yeah, me too. Back at breakfast, Rugby Joe is obviously gutted that his favourite Hyundai, as he calls him, is gone. And Stephen's really, well, Stephen's saying, "Oh, not Joe, this is awful, poor Joe." And David becomes convinced that that's a bit of an act. He thinks, and he says to whoever's beside him, like, "Look at Stephen, I think he's doing a bit too much. This is classic acting. It's over the top." Rugby Joe also starts digging in at the traitors, saying, "Well, they've ruined the game." And he, in this episode, Rugby Joe kind of like annoys me a bit. Like he keeps making these little jabs, and I can't tell if he's just really got a dry sense of humor, and that's just him, or if he really is just a bit miserable sometimes. He said in the last episode, "Oh, I'm really bored of everyone being nice to each other in the morning," and I don't know. He just starts to bother me a little bit. I want him to lighten up as much as he
Yeah,
can.
I think that is a part of him. I was watching his rugby highlight things the other day. He's quite a wind-up merchant, and I think he
Mm,
can be quite reactive. So I think he's finally got to the point where actually he's just had enough, and
yeah,
so he's getting a bit stroppy, and he's failing to hide it, isn't he?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. There's one more thing he does a lot later on that also I found really off-putting, but we'll get there. So Claudia arrives. tells them, of course, that almost half of them are gone, all faithful, of course. And today she's going to talk to the traitors rather than the faithful and says, "Aren't you having a brilliant game? Congratulations." And drops her little clue for the mission by saying, "Who here likes board games?" And they, for a moment, they theorise about what that might mean. We spread off around the castle, bit of discussion, little groups forming. We've got Kate, Stephen, Lucy, and David in the library. And David just gets it totally wrong. He's looking at Kate and Stephen and he's saying, "Oh, there's something about the way you
Yeah.
two interact. It feels like it's prepared, the way you bounce off one another." And of course, we know he's completely wrong. And Kate's like, "Well, I'm flattered that you think I'm working with Stephen Fry, but
Yeah.
he's just way off." And Kate, she talks in her interview for a moment, or sort of confessional clip, and she said something like this before. I can't remember when. She says, in her job, she has to remain
Yes.
neutral and impartial, and she finds it hard to have a killer instinct. And
Point.
it confused me a little bit at first, but then I thought, well, actually, yeah, I think maybe if people don't know who Kate is, they think of her as like a journalist, but she's not like as far as I know, she's not like a hard hitting like columnist. She's not like a political journalist who uncovers scandals and like skewers politicians. She's a TV presenter. She's a TV morning news host that interviews guests that come on. So in that sense, yeah, she does just have to ask quite neutral questions and try and get people to speak and not take sides. So I do understand what she means by that. She's not that kind of journalist who goes for people. I do get her explanation. Uh, by the way, in New Zealand, this is probably a dumb question. Obviously, you get like all different versions of the traitors and things. Do you like? Can you watch Good Morning Britain? I mean, obviously it's on at a completely different time of day for you, but is that like? Do you get ITV?
No,
Okay.
no. I mean, I can watch all English TV because I've got a VPN, but no, it's not shown. But interestingly, the Celebrity Traitors is showing here. I mean, I'm
Hmm.
watching it on BBC, but they are showing it here, and it's only like a few days behind, which
Yeah.
is actually unusual here. So that's quite surprising. But no, we can't watch. Is it whatever she's on, Good Morning TV or
Yeah.
whatever it
Yeah.
is she's on? But I agree with you about her. I think she would make a rubbish traitor anyway. She genuinely would. She would. She's
Yeah.
not
I
cut
mean,
out for it, is she?
unless she was an incredible actress and this was all a big facade, I
Mm.
think it feels like it'd be very unlikely that she's pulling this all off as a big act.
Yeah,
But I get. Do you know who? But you knew who Kate was anyway. I'm guessing. Like
I did. Yeah,
you'll
yeah,
have known
yeah,
her from. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So Lucy and Jonathan then are whispering a little bit in the corridor. They're talking about how difficult it is and how maybe they should just follow their instincts. And they're wondering, well, do we go for Stephen? That's someone we've been talking about all along. And Jonathan starts talking about David as David is approaching. I mean, David must hear what they're saying, I think, but it's kind of too late to stop talking. They're saying, and what they're saying is really funny to me. Jonathan's talking about how smart David is, and he's saying, well, we don't like Comedy Joe accused David of being a traitor last night, and now Comedy Joe's been murdered. Is that just a big ploy by David to throw us off him? But he's so clever, maybe he could. But what's so funny about that is that's exactly what Jonathan did with Ruth and got away with it, which I
Mm.
still can't believe. Like every episode, I predict I'm now just like, who's going to get banished next? Jonathan. I might as well just like at one time it's going to happen, but it just keeps making
No.
it. I mean, at the end of this episode, I'm probably going to predict it's Jonathan again next, and it probably won't be, but we'll see what you think.
Yeah.
So after this little moment with David, like where I think he must be able to hear them, Jonathan joins Alan and Kat and Nick, which is so funny because Nick is now surrounded by all three traitors, and he's sort of counting like, right, there's probably three traitors, and how many players are left? And of course, for us, it's a really funny moment. He doesn't realize he probably knows at least one of them's a traitor. He doesn't realize all three of them are traitors as he's saying this.
Well, and he
Although
does, and I
actually,
wrote down. Yeah, sorry, I wrote down there was a thing at breakfast as well where he was sus on Alan and Jay and Jonathan, so he has got the right reads. He's just yeah, it's just he's trying to really play. We'll see later. He's really
Hmm.
trying to play the game um with a different view on it, isn't he? He's a
Yeah,
clever man.
yeah, he is. He is obviously very clever. I do have a bit of confusion surrounding Nick and what he does later, though. You're right. He does say here. He also does think Kat's a traitor. So I guess he's right about
Yeah.
Jonathan and Kat on his list.
Mm.
But he does throw out other names. Like there's a couple of other people later that he says he's sure Lucy's a traitor as well, and he's completely wrong there. But he tells us he's going to try and do the smart thing, which is get close to a traitor, make them think he could be trusted. He thinks they're faithful. Stick with them as long as possible, and then when the time is right, much later in the game, if he's still around, then he'll get rid of them. Which generally I think is a really smart way to play the game. If you're sure you know who the traitors are, I mean, and I don't know how sure you ever can be, but he's pretty convinced with himself. Celia and Kat have a little chat alone in the kitchen, with Celia saying, we're getting this so wrong, we're looking in all the wrong places. Whoever the traitors are, they must be playing it so cool. And of course, Kat is just the epitome of like cool and calm and collected, it seems. So Celia asks her, are you a traitor? And she just says, I'm not a traitor. And Celia goes, no, I don't think you are. Just
Yeah.
so wrong again. And with that, it's time for the mission today, and it's the giant chessboard outside. I think this is the first mission this series that is a repeat of one we've seen before in other series. It's just the exact same idea. Last night, the traitors were asked questions about the players, and the whole group now basically has to guess what did the traitors answer. But they're going to play in two teams, and the winning team will win shields. And they do win money here without really having to do anything. Claudia just says £5,000 will be added to the prize pot if you all take part. Like,
Yeah, basically.
obviously they're going to take part. So it's just like, yeah, a free excuse to add a little bit of cash. Fine. The team splitting up, the group splitting up into teams, I guess, just causes such angst. I mean, Lucy just goes, well, let's just split up where we're standing right now. And Rugby Joe's going, no. And they move back and forth, and eventually they divide themselves again. And Claudia says, okay, are we happy now? Rugby Joe, no. And even Stephen and Jonathan go, oh, it's just Joe being Joe. Can we just get on with it? And Joe, the reason Joe's annoyed is because he thinks that there are more traitors in the other team, and he is right. And he wants to be in that team, and they mix themselves up again because Nick suggests, well, let's just do it one more time and make sure it's the traitors couldn't have picked this. I mean, of course, Nick could be a traitor and he's engineering this, but
Yeah.
so they end up finally with a new arrangement of people, and Nick ends up in a team with Jonathan and Lucy, who Nick thinks is a traitor as well.
Yeah.
But he's also with Stephen and Kate. And it means that the other team is Alan, Joe, Kat, Celia, and David. The mission begins. I'll go through the questions that they're asked with a bit of a caveat. Something interesting happened here. The two guys bring out a big mouse piece, and the question is, who is the weakest player? And they all agree very easily on Kate. Even Kate's like, yeah, it's probably me.
Yeah. I love that.
Okay. I guess so she got something right, and when they get it right, and she's with Claudia, she's going, yeah, I'm finally useful for something. So that really made me laugh. Poor Kate. And the way that they show their answers is by moving these big headstones onto the right square, and both teams go for Kate. And then this big, huge traitor's figure chess piece moves around the board. Celia looked genuinely terrified when I was moving around. Like, there's a few shots of her like absolutely horrified, which just everything Celia does, I think, makes me laugh. There's more in this mission alone that makes me laugh about Celia. Next up is the two-headed piece, and the question is, who's the most two-faced? And Celia just goes, well, I'm quite two-faced. Just,
Brilliant. Love that by her. Loved it.
yeah, Yeah, she just owns up to it. And the other team are quietly saying, well, I guess Celia could be the answer, maybe. And she doesn't seem to care. And they all agree on Celia. Claudia, she goes over to Claudia, and Claudia says, you magnificent creature. And I agree. Both teams are correct. That is who the traitors chose. Claudia, there's this funny moment. Claudia suddenly says, it's the first team to three wins the game. And I thought, oh, she didn't say that at the start. And I watched it
Oh,
twice, and I realized, oh,
oh,
they've sort of like dubbed her voice over. Like you don't see her saying that word. They've kind of just added it like in post or something. Her saying first to three wins. And I thought that why is that? And I asked a colleague about this because I work in TV and I don't work with people who've worked in the Traitors right now, but people know people and I sort of and everyone I work with, we all love the Traitors and we talk about it. So I was saying, oh, does anyone? That was weird. The mission. And this is what I heard, and I don't have a lot of detail. Apparently, they only do three chess pieces, but actually there were four. And one of them we saw in other versions of the show, it was a snake. And the question was, who's the biggest snake? And I don't know who they chose, but apparently, whatever celebrity was the answer got really annoyed and angry about it. And
oh,
they've ended
really?
up they've just edited, because it doesn't, because both teams got it right, I'm assuming. So they've just cut it out of the episode.
Oh,
And that's why
oh,
it was quite
interesting.
short, and they just had like three chess pieces and three questions, and
Yes.
they've got this weird, oh, it's just first to three. So
Oh, really?
Claudia tells them that one person will represent each team. They pick Nick and Joe, and whichever player gets their headstone on the correct answer first will win. So it's kind of, I guess it's to stop them from just having a tie, that they say, well,
Yes.
if you both
Yes.
pick the right answer, it's just whoever put the piece there first.
Yeah.
That'll solve it. So this next piece comes on, and it's the big wolf, and the question is, who's the leader of the pack? Nick is then whispering to Joe, and he says, "You've got to win." And I first of all I thought, how are the other players not hearing him say this? But then he says even quieter, or he sort of mouths, "I'll let you win." And I was
Mm.
very confused. Again, I watched it twice, so the second time it became a bit clearer. I didn't understand what he was doing at first. And he then tries to explain. He says, there are more faithful in the other team. But he's wrong, by the way. There actually are more traitors in the
He's
other
wrong.
team. But
Yeah.
he thinks
Yeah.
there are more faithful. So it's better to protect that team with shields. So he's just going to let them win.
Mhm.
To me, this doesn't make any sense. What did you think about Nick doing this? Was it a good idea? Do you think it's going to backfire?
Yeah, I think, at the time I was quite surprised. And I think in his head it's a good idea. And potentially it could have been. But as we've already said, he doesn't know who the traitors are. He
Yeah,
suspects that. So, and that's where it falls down immediately, is that one, he's wrong. And two, as we'll discuss at the round table, it actually puts a target on his back anyway. So he's trying to think outside the box, but he's trying to be too clever. And I
yeah,
think that is because he's obviously a clever man. But yeah, it backfired on him big
yeah.
time.
Yeah, backfires at the round table because I think his plan was obviously not to admit it, but he ends up admitting it to try and save Joe
Yeah.
later. The reason
Mm.
that I don't even get the plan anyway, whether he admitted it or not, was it doesn't change what's going to happen to the faithful. A faithful will still be murdered tonight. So it doesn't matter what team
Yeah,
gets
that's true
shields.
actually. Yeah,
So even if
yeah,
the other team has it's all faithful, and or there's more faithful in it and they all get shields, someone from his team is still going to get
I'm
murdered.
going to,
So
yeah,
by tomorrow morning, if someone gets murdered, there will still be the one less faithful in the game. Like, so he's not really
yeah.
helping anything. So that's what I don't get about his plan.
Overthinking, yeah, I think just overthinking it on the spur of the moment, yeah, maybe,
Yeah,
but yeah, it wasn't a good decision.
yeah. The only way around it, and I don't think this is what he's thinking, is if there are four traitors in his team and he's the only faithful, and then he gets banished, and so the traitors have no one to murder, but that's so
Yeah,
unlikely. So
no, yeah, and I don't think he's thinking that. No.
no, no. So they have to answer the question, who's the leader of the pack? And Nick deliberately just sort of takes his time with the tombstone and lets Joe go first. And he eventually puts it on the wrong name anyway. He puts it on Jonathan. And Joe gets to the Stephen square, and Nick gives a fake reason. He says, well, I think it's not that I think that Jonathan's a traitor, which he does. But he says, I think the traitors would have chosen him, so that's what I'm guessing.
Yeah.
And Lucy's just sort of like, what's he doing? Why is he doing this? And the giant traitor piece moves around the board, heads to Stephen, which is the correct answer. And it means that only Nick, Lucy, Kate, or Stephen can be murdered tonight. Obviously, Jonathan is in that team, but he's a traitor, so he can't murder himself. And yeah, there's a bit more of Lucy just being really annoyed with Nick's choice, and they win their £5,000. We head back to the castle then. We don't need to be in a Land Rover because they're very close to the castle. It seems like they just walked here. Nick and Joe have a little secret chat because they are basically, they've become allies and they just completely implicitly trust one another as faithful. And Nick says, I know that Jonathan and Lucy are traitors. And then he says, possibly Stephen and also Kat. And so, again, maybe this is controversial. I do agree Nick is very clever. I think people are praising him for being like the new genius of the season. And there's a very, very popular entertainment podcast, and they cover the traitors amongst other TV. And they've sort of said, Nick's playing like 4D chess, he's so smart. And I thought, well, he just named 4 people as traitors and 2 of them were wrong. And he was only picking out of 9. So
Yeah.
maybe we're giving him a bit too much credit.
Yeah, he's a smart man, but it doesn't mean to say he's smart at the game, does it?
Yeah.
And that's completely different, as we can see. Stephen is incredibly intelligent, one of the most incredible people, on the celebrity-wise. But he couldn't read it either. So yeah.
Yeah, agreed. Joe, though, now says that he's suspicious of Stephen because of that little moment in the mission where Stephen got annoyed with him about wanting to change the teams again. So he thinks, I mean, if I was in the other player's position, I'd be annoyed too. I'd be like, oh my God, Joe, it doesn't matter who's in what team. So yeah, that bothered him about Stephen. Nick talks a bit again about why he sabotaged the mission, and he's saying, look, only a traitor can win on their own. A faithful can't win on their own. We need to have strength in numbers, but I just reiterate my previous point that his plan didn't make a difference to how many faithful were going to be left, so I just don't think it mattered. And he reiterates that he's going to align himself with a traitor. In this case, he's saying, he's suggesting to Joe it's Lucy and Kat. And again, he's got one of them right. He thinks that's who they should stick to. And Joe's like, yeah, good idea. We should do that. So they are going to try and stick it out as far as they can together. There's a funny moment out in the corridor when Lucy's talking to Kate and says, who are you going to go for tonight? And Kate, again, just goes, oh, I don't know. Even Lucy, who seems so mild-mannered, goes, oh, you must have a clue, Kate. Come on.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And they come back to, well, it must be Stephen or Jonathan. It's got to be one of them. And they go back and forth and the reasons it could be one or the other. But it seems like their conversation ends with them focusing more on Stephen because he commandeers the round table a little bit. Maybe that's what it is. Meanwhile, Stephen seems totally oblivious as to why he's been considered leader of the pack. Which, maybe, I don't know if he's been honest or just been humble, but...
He's being honest. I got the impression he was being honest about it, actually.
Yeah. I mean, to me, that was the obvious answer, but I guess to Stephen, in his mind, he's like, well, I haven't... And he freely admits, he's like, I keep getting it wrong, so I don't know anything. I don't know why they think I'm the leader. And there's... I've said it myself already in this podcast, but the phrase "big dog theory," I can't hear it anymore. They just talk about it all the time. It's really doing my head in.
No.
They need a new phrase. They need to move on, call it something else. So Stephen, I'll just call it the BD theory. Stephen deduces that, well, if they are going to go with the BD theory, this is in his interview, so he's just talking to us. He says, well, I know it's not me, so that leaves to him Jonathan or Alan. And I'm like, yes, Stephen, you've got it right. You've got it right.
Yeah.
But he's got very little time left to do anything about it. At the round table, then, Claudia arrives. The prize fund now is £43,500, and she tells the players to have a look round the table and ask yourselves this: who is lying to you? Who's smiling and laughing to your face and stabbing you in the back? And I'm going to be a bit of a conspiracy theorist again. I'm not usually like this. I believe that generally there's no fixing things. There's the game naturally plays out. I did wonder at this moment, was that a little bit of a hint towards Alan or Jonathan by saying who's smiling and laughing? Like, were they trying to make them think who are the funny people? Maybe I don't know. I would just wonder, are the producers like,
Maybe, yeah.
we want them?
Yeah, I mean, it could be. I didn't think of that actually. I did that. I didn't pick that up, but you're right. It could have been. I don't think any of them picked that up though.
No, no.
So it could have been. I mean, I'd like to think no. I'd like to think it does play out naturally, but and it was just something that she's a throwaway comment, but
Yeah,
possibly, yeah.
yeah. And
Maybe.
I think I know the answer and I know what you'll say, but I'll ask anyway for listeners who are very sort of skeptical and think that everything's rigged. You were on Traitors New Zealand. Of course, you could be lying about this, but I mean, how much interference was there? Like, how much does the game just, were you ever prodded to murder a certain person or to go a certain way when it came to votes? Is it completely left up to the players?
Honestly, 100%. I can only speak for New Zealand. We were never ever directed in any way, shape, or form. We were never. Production were brilliant. They completely kept out of it. We were allowed to do what we wanted when we wanted, and there was no interference. And that is an absolute truth. So,
Mm,
I don't know what it's like in other franchises, but yeah, it played out how we wanted it to be, which is why it was so annoying because otherwise we probably would have worked together a lot better if it hadn't been. So yeah, yeah,
yeah.
they had nothing to do with it at all.
Yeah, that's what I would assume. And it's just one of those things that comes up. And even in this celebrity
Yeah,
series,
sure.
I've had there have been comments on YouTube and of people saying, well, I think they were told to get rid of this person, or I think they've been told to keep the more famous people. And I don't think they have. I just think that's the way the game has
Yeah,
fallen.
yeah.
There was Stephen Lambert, who's the head of Lambert Studios, who produces The Traitors in the UK. There's a video of him on YouTube or something just this past week, and I think it's him speaking maybe at the Edinburgh TV Festival, which wasn't that long ago. So it's this sort of 45-minute discussion with Stephen Lambert, and he talks a bit about this very thing, and he says, and again, he could say whatever he wants. Maybe you think he's lying to us, but he says no. It's so hands off. We just let That's what makes it good TV, is we just let the game play out as if it was people playing it in their house without cameras. Obviously there's certain things that they have to control where the players go and take them back in the Land Rovers to the hotel and all that stuff. But when it comes to the actual game and the decisions they make, he says no, we have to just. And actually, he points out that particularly in British TV, because it's different for the celebrity one, but because it's a game show with a prize fund, you're actually not allowed to. You can't cheat. You can't influence. It's like a quiz show. It's like watching The Chase or uh, pointless. They can't
Yeah.
interfere with how well the players get on. If there's big money at stake, there's rules they have to abide by. So they'd actually be in a hell of a lot of trouble if they were interfering who ended up winning a lot of money at the end. So,
I saw that interview, yeah,
yeah,
with him, and I agree with you. I think he was being honest, and I think if they did interfere, it would be we would more people would pick up on it. I think it would be a
yeah,
bit more obvious. So, and people wouldn't be um, so passionate about what they're doing. So yeah, I agree.
yeah, yeah. So here we are. It's time for us to start the discussions. And Jonathan, well, begins by suggesting someone else begins. He says maybe we should hear from David because he came under so much heat last time. David brings up Kate and Stephen again and how he sees them interacting with one another and he finds it odd. Again, I said this in the last episode, but I'll say again, it's funny that David and Stephen are sort of friends in real life outside the show. Like they know each other really well. So it's very interesting that they keep coming at one another. And Kate defends herself and says, "Well, all I'm doing is asking questions about different people's names and why people think different people. And you, David, you every time I do it, you say I'm deflecting like a traitor would do, and I'm not. That's just me asking questions and just being curious. I don't know. Stephen then suggests something really simple, a piece of. They talk about evidence all the time, and that phrase doesn't really mean much. But he picks up one thing. He's saying, well, if there's anything quite concrete we could go on, we do know that the traitors don't get as much sleep as the others because they're up filming in the turret for an extra couple of hours or however long it takes. So he turns to Kat and he says, Kat, well, he says you were sleeping in the window today. So it seems like you're not getting enough sleep. Is that just a very simple thing we could look at? And she says, no, well, look, I've got autism and ADHD, and I just find it so draining being around everyone. I actually just need time to recuperate and, refill my batteries. And we've heard Kat talking about being neurodivergent before, so I think, okay, yeah, that's probably true. I wonder if simultaneously she's like, well, if that also gets me off the hook here, I could throw it into the conversation. And Stephen's just like, okay, oh, thanks for telling me that. I thought Stephen was going to say something else. I thought he was going to say, the traitors don't get as much sleep as everyone else. Who looks like shit? Let's look around. Who looks awful?
Yeah, yeah, exactly, yeah.
And I guess, it's a different country and production company, but from your experience, were you filming late at night? I mean, is that the case that you're more exhausted than everyone else?
Yeah, definitely. We were, and I've seen loads of things on Reddit and stuff about this as well. And you do. So you do. The question was, do you go back to your? Because as everybody knows, in every series, you don't stay at the castle. We didn't stay at Claremont Manor. You do go back with them all, and then you do have to wait in your room, and you are collected as a traitor to come back. So you are up until. I mean, our days were 17 hours long, pretty much. So yeah, we were. I mean, I slept really well just because I was so exhausted all the time. But yeah, definitely. So it's a valid point that he brings up that actually, yes, they do get less sleep and probably more stress. So it's actually when he said that, I was like, that's the first time I think anyone's brought that up, and it's actually a valid point. And Kat did well to deflect that. Whether that was right or not, poor Stephen was like, oh, okay, yeah, you're like you said, thanks for telling me. Yeah, he didn't want to push it any further, which is fair enough. Yeah. And she has said she's neurodivergent. You're right, but yeah, it is a fair argument, definitely.
Yeah, I thought that was a smart, but maybe they talked about it longer and they just cut it out. I don't know. We can't tell. So they also then chat a bit about the tense atmosphere today, and Stephen says, I know people are going to vote for me. I know that people have been talking about me. And he's saying, well, I guess that's the nature of the game. That he said, even when I walked into breakfast this morning, I could feel the way everybody was looking at me. And because I knew that, it made me feel like I was acting guilty. And you look guilty all the time. I get it now. And Celia sort of defends him and says she's absolutely sure he's a faithful, and Lucy again says, but why, why do you think that? And she asks, is it because you know him outside of this, you've worked with him, so you can tell that he's not acting any differently? And Celia says, yeah, it probably is that. Jonathan talks about something that keeps coming up in this episode, about whether they should follow their gut instinctive feelings or they should be sort of trying to follow some sort of logic. And he's saying last night he thought it was Stephen, but then he got swayed away. I think he's implying maybe I should have just stuck to Stephen. And Rugby Joe comes in here, and I think the whole way through he's just got his arms folded. Really, really like defensive body language. He's just so fed up. And he comes for Jonathan again, of course. He says, you were convinced that Mark wasn't a traitor. Who are you convinced about now that's not a traitor? And Jonathan says, well, definitely not Nick, Kat. Funny, he doesn't say Alan. He says, I think, Joe, you're probably faithful. But then Jonathan does this, I think, really clever thing. He always makes sure that he appears very reasonable and very rational. So he says, Joe, I'm questioning the way you were in the mission and how easily you got that right answer correct. Is that because you knew the answer because you're a traitor? Then he says, but I don't really think that. I don't think it's you. So he's been very good at not just jumping on people. He's sort of weighing everything up very calmly. But Joe, I mean, Joe doesn't care. Joe just keeps going on at him and the BD theory, and he brings things back round to Ruth's murder and saying, "Hey, we all forgot about that. But maybe it just was you that killed her. Why don't we just get you out?" And Jonathan, I think, gets a little bit annoyed here. He's going, "Well, I didn't kill her. I don't know what you want me to say." Alan then, I think, trying to maybe defend Jonathan, comes for Joe and he says, "Well, Joe, I can't read you. Actually, I'm suspicious of you." He says it's like talking to a boulder. And this is where Alan makes this potentially big blunder that you referenced earlier, Jane. He says, "Oh, I'm just worried. I'm worried I shouldn't be speaking up this loudly, like I did last night with Mark, because that's who the traitors go for. They go for people who speak up too much, and it could get me murdered." And first of all, Joe says, "Well, you spoke up loudly yesterday and you didn't get murdered." But more importantly, he says, "Well, you won't get, the traitors aren't going to murder you tonight." And Alan's going, "What do you mean?" Until Joe says, "Well, you have a shield." And Alan just goes, "Oh, yeah, I've got a shield." And Kate's going, "Yeah, you've got a shield, Alan." And Joe's just shakes his head and he's going, "Oh my God, I give up." And it could it could be like a really awful moment for Alan. Lucy, I think, sort of saves it because it seems like she just steps in and focuses more on Joe. And she says, "Yeah, actually, Joe, I agree. You behave very differently at the round table. You're much more blunt. You're not normally like this." And then even Jonathan's going, "Well, Joe, actually, I'm going to vote for you tonight, mostly because of that task. I think I will go for you." And I think this is what prompts Nick to step in and admit, "Actually, no, everyone, you've got it wrong." I think he's worried that things are suddenly swinging towards Joe and he has to save him. So he just is like, "Right, I'll just tell you, he won because of me. I sabotaged the mission." So, well, firstly, I'm jumping ahead. What do you think about Alan and his mistake here? Do you think it's going to come back to haunt him?
Well, they mention it. Joe does mention it later
Yeah,
after the round table. What I would say, when he first did it, I was like, "Oh no, Alan, Alan." But if I was Alan and knowing how he's been, could see him potentially, because of the way it played out, I could see him potentially defending it by saying, "Well, when Joe said, well, they're not," because Joe was quite forthright, wasn't he? He said, "Well, they're not going to murder you tonight." I would, if I was Alan, I'd kind of say something like, "Well, I didn't know what he was going to say. I thought he was going to try and say I was a traitor." So kind of play around it that way. That's the only way
yeah,
I can
yeah,
think. And the only other thing is that Joe does just think Alan's being stupid, but he does bring it up later. So I really hope it's not used against him. But
yeah,
it's a big slip up, isn't it? But his first
yeah.
slip up, yeah.
I wonder if Alan could also brush it off by or explain it away by saying the reason he kind of forgot is because he doesn't have a literal shield. Like other missions, you're handed
Yes.
one and you've got it with you. But this time it was just his whole team of 5 people all being told you won't be murdered. So he's
Yes.
with 4 other people and they don't have a physical object. So he could just say like, "Oh, I sort of forgot. I'm protected because I've not got an actual shield." Like just something like that maybe. And they go, "All right, okay,
Yeah.
fair enough."
He's got a couple of get out clauses, isn't he, if he thinks about
Yeah,
it. So fingers crossed, because I really don't want Alan to go.
I know,
Really
I
don't.
know. So yeah, Nick admits here that he sabotaged the mission. Cut to all these shocked faces like Stephen and Lucy and Kate, and he tries to explain again. He thought his group had more traitors in it. He sort of basically says he's willing to sacrifice himself if it means that more faithful in the other team survive, which still doesn't make sense to me because it just means another faithful's gone anyway. It doesn't matter who it is. And Kate says, "Well, now I'm suspicious of you because you were dishonest and you were willing to let me get murdered. So I find that a bit shady." And before the vote, there's just sort of another bit of chat about whether or not they should just go and gut instinct. And Stephen's saying, "We always try and figure out what the traitors' strategies are, and there's just no point. It's just not working for us."
Yeah.
So Claudia ends the discussion, and uh, as per usual, we just see Lucy like writing stuff and then ripping it out and changing it.
Yeah. Every time.
Yeah. She, she just
Oh,
truly seems so bamboozled every time, and she doesn't know who to go for. And again, like Nick thinks Lucy's a traitor. I would think surely not. Like surely, if she was a traitor, she wouldn't be doing something that obvious every time at the round table, would she? I don't know.
no, and
Uh,
actually, Nick never comes up with any reason that I can remember why he thinks she's a traitor, does he?
no, yeah,
Which is
that's right. I've not
weird.
heard him. Yeah,
No.
I don't know if it is just that he thinks she's pretending to not have a clue or that she's going under the radar. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't really know what his reason is.
No.
That's a good point. So here are our votes. Alan begins and votes for Joe. And there's just this brilliant moment where he explains his vote again. He says, I think it's about the mission today. You went too quickly for the answer. And he just looks at Joe and goes, yes.
Joe's open mouth, isn't he?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. Kate's next and votes for Nick, and which she probably wasn't going to do half an hour ago. And she says, "Well, the only evidence of lies I've heard today is your lie. You threw me under the bus, threw me to the wolves. You've just revealed that you weren't honest with us." Joe goes for Jonathan, which is probably very predictable. And Jonathan just says to him, "I don't like you anymore." So at least he can still keep his sense of humour. Lucy goes for Jonathan as well, which is also not a surprise. It seemed like throughout the day that's what she's been saying. Maybe we just do the
Yeah.
obvious thing and go for Jonathan. Kat's next and votes for Stephen, which is interesting. She's still protecting Jonathan.
And
She's
yeah.
still going for Stephen, even though she knows if he gets banished now, she knows what the outcome will be. I don't know if it was. I mean, you're shaking your head. I guess you think it was a really bad idea for Kat to do this.
She's going for Stephen all the time, isn't she? I think Kat. I was really high on Kat to start off with, but I think she needs to do a lot more. And I really like her, but I just think she's being too quiet. She's playing too safe. Maybe she's intimidated by Jonathan Ross. But I think that was a time for her to go for Jonathan or for Joe. Why go for Stephen every time? I just yeah, it was a bit like,
Yeah.
oh come on, Kat.
Yeah, I mean, I think with the vote numbers, maybe I'm wrong. If Kat and Alan had secretly agreed, let's just get Jonathan tonight, I think it would have worked. I think they would have
It
got
would have
him,
gone, yeah. Yeah.
and they would have looked better because they just voted out a traitor. Maybe next week. Maybe it's gone away. Who knows? Uh, After Kat, it's Stephen, and Stephen votes for David, which I'm pretty sure he did last time, yeah. And he says, I just don't have anything else since last time, so I'll just have to go with the same. Celia votes for Joe. Jonathan then says, actually, I've now changed my mind. I was going to vote for Joe, but now that Nick's just said what he said, I'm going to go for Stephen. And I sort of understand Jonathan. I think he's trying to make himself look like a faithful. Like it would be so easy for him just to go for Joe because Joe is going for him. So I think he's trying to make himself
Yeah.
look quite rational again and say, look, well, I'm not going to just vote for you because you vote for me. Actually, I've rethought things, and so I don't know if that'll work. So it's a tie now. Jonathan, Stephen, and Joe all have 2 votes, and we've only got 2 votes left to go. David then votes for Stephen, so they're still voting for one another. And the final vote is Nick, and he could take it to another tie if he voted for Jonathan or Joe, but he turns over his slate. He's picked Stephen. So I guess that's his plan. His plan is keep the real traitors. Although he said earlier he kind of thought Stephen was a traitor, but I guess his plan is to keep Lucy and Kat around. So he's
Yes.
sticking to that.
Yeah.
So Stephen is banished. He and again I kind of had this spoiled for me. So I'm sure it would have had much more impact, but I knew it was coming, which is really annoying.
Oh,
And
you
I
need to get
guess
a new partner,
I
Matthew.
know, I can't believe it. I've said it. I say it on the podcast at the start of the season, but I'll say it again. That maybe just for listeners, people do assume that I'm watching live as it's on TV, and I'm usually not. So last night I was actually recording the last podcast episode while it was on TV. I didn't catch up till a couple of hours later. So sometimes
Yeah.
people do just like well-meaningly send me a message
It's,
telling me exactly what's going to happen, and
yeah.
it's been spoiled. So Just give me a little spoiler alert. Be careful. Stephen says, I've had the best fun for years. What an extraordinary bunch of people. To be part of such a group is a privilege and an honour and a deep delight. And he tells them there's no hard feelings. He promises, I am, of course, as I have told you all along, a faithful. And every round table is just a series of shots of everyone looking devastated. And again, David says, well, we can't win now. And Claudia comes right in and says, there's still time, faithful, to turn this around. I've not done the maths in my head yet. Can the faithful still win? Is it too late?
I looked on I looked online and someone did all the. Luckily, someone else did because I can't. My math is rubbish, but they can still win.
Yeah.
But I think so. There's going to be another murder, the face-to-face murder, which we'll discuss, and then after that, if they don't, I think after that, if they don't get a traitor next, then they can't win. So, I mean,
Yeah. I'll talk about this. I think I've made a note on this later. But yeah, if they got a traitor out next and another one, and there were no recruitments, they would end up with just one left. And so yeah, the faithful whoever's left could gang up on that one person. But it's a tough hill to climb, I guess, at this point.
made it difficult for
Not,
themselves, haven't they?
yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
And Claudia reminds them that either Jonathan, Nick, Kate, or Lucy will be murdered. We know that Jonathan can't be murdered. Joe sort of has a go at Kat here while they're still in the room, and maybe you might disagree with me because you said you also think Kat's been too quiet, but I did find it a bit patronising when he just turns to Kat and says, "I need more." He says it's all well and good believing someone's a faithful, but we need to find traitors. And Kat's just like, "Oh yeah, sorry, I know," but I don't know. I just thought it was in front of everybody to pick
Yeah.
her out. I thought it was a bit mean. I didn't like Joe doing
I
this.
agree. It was. I do agree with him, but I do. That wasn't probably the best place to set. But I think he's just annoyed now, isn't he, about
Yeah,
everything, about the whole thing, and it's really showing.
yeah,
But yeah, he shouldn't really have done that in front of everybody. No.
yeah. We leave the round table then. We have a bit of a debrief round the castle. Lucy and Kat leave together actually, and Lucy says, "Do you think it's Jonathan?" And Kat says, "Has to be." So that's making you wonder, okay, is she finally going to turn on him at the next round table then? And she even says in her interview to the camera, I actually don't understand how they haven't worked out. It's got to be Jonathan or Alan. She says, even I'm trying to help them now, but they're just not paying attention. We've got Kate quizzing Nick then. So we're in the library, there's a few other people there, and she's like, right, what? I don't get this. Why did you throw the mission? And he goes on again about how it just made sense for the other team to be protected. But to me, it doesn't. He was wrong about where the traitors were. I've talked about the numbers and how a faithful's still going to go no matter what, so it didn't matter to me. And Kate also points out to Nick, well, like you said, well, this makes me actually just think that I shouldn't trust you. But she says also, okay, I think Nick says, well, I'm probably going to get, or Kate's saying, well, I hope you feel bad if I get murdered. And Nick's saying, well, I think I'll get murdered. And Kate says, well, why would the traitors murder you? Because you're doing the work for them. So I wonder if she's kind of right. And then in the billiards room, we've got Joe, Lucy, Kat, and Nick. And this is where you said that Joe brings up the fact that Alan forgot he had a shield, and even Lucy's going, "Yeah, that was really weird, wasn't it?" And there's actually a moment of Kat sort of getting in on it. Kat goes, "Yeah, that was weird." So I'm scared. I'm scared for Alan. I really hope they just move on and more stuff happens tomorrow that this becomes insignificant. The
Yeah.
midnight chimes are ringing. We've got Alan telling Celia that he thinks either David or Jonathan must be a traitor. We've got David saying he's going to write a long apology letter to Stephen. And just when I think we're going to go off to the Traitor's Tower, things change a bit. Claudia talks to us and she says things are going to work differently tonight. The three possible murder victims then receive these letters, and they must think at that moment, oh God, I'm going to get murdered, here I go. But actually, it's telling them that there will be a face-to-face murder at the chessboard, and they're going to get there, they're going to stand and face the big traitor's chess piece. When it comes towards them, they'll turn around and either see Claudia or the traitors. If they see the traitors, that means they've been murdered. And we've got our dramatic slow-mo shots of Kate, Nick, Lucy all arriving in the night with their torches one by one. And we end the episode with a succession of reaction shots as they turn to face their fate. So here's where I would immediately ask you about your predictions, who you think's going to go. To sort of lead us into that, Jane, I've got a listener email. So Vinny emailed very quickly after the episode was done. This didn't spoil anything. Don't worry, Vinny. I read your email after I had watched it, so it's fine. Vinny's got a theory about who's going to get murdered, and then we can see if we agree with it. He says Nick is dead. His edit in this week's episodes put a spotlight on his theories, showing how clever he is at the game and had worked out two of the traitors, Kat and Jonathan, although I disagree with that a little bit. And Vinny says, I have no doubt in my mind he's the one getting the chop out of Kate, Lucy and Nick. He was playing the game well, realising that a terrific strategy is to figure out who the traitors are, befriend them and banish some faithful to get to the end and then oust the traitors. Nick picked the absolute worst time to stick his head above the parapet and revealed to the group at the round table that he schemed with Rugby Joe to throw the final question. So Vinny's convinced Nick's going. What do you think? Who are the traitors going to choose to murder this time?
I don't think it'll be Lucy. I think it's between Nick and Kate. Now, Kate is a really easy option because she's just, oh, it's clearly is not a traitor. But I think what Vinny said about Nick is a good point. And I think the reason why I think Nick is good, I agree with him. I think Nick is going to be murdered. And the reason why, again, is, well, he voted for Stephen. So he didn't vote for any of the traitors at the round table. He has brought up Lucy's name. So again, why murder her? So I think if they want to murder him, they could quite easily murder him and it not come back to them. So I agree with him. I think it'll be Nick. What about you?
Okay. I'm really torn, but actually I think I'm going to go with Kate because I think they might keep Nick because he's now created a bit of heat in himself, and the traitors might think we could use this to our advantage. We could make Nick look like he's up to secret, he's got secret plans and he's sabotaging things, and that's something we shouldn't trust. I also wonder if I'm thinking about Lucy, and we had that moment of Lucy and Kat talking, saying, they came out of the round table and Lucy says, well, do you think it's Jonathan? And Kat went, yeah, I think it is. So I wonder if Kat will argue to keep Lucy because she now wants to get rid of Jonathan. So Lucy's someone to help make that happen. I wonder if they'll keep Lucy because Nick might get people onto. I just wonder if Kate's the only one that it kind of doesn't make a difference whether she stays or goes.
That is a fair point. It's neither here nor there if they go with Kate. But judging by the murders they've done in the previously, I still think they might go there with Nick. But it'll be interesting. I totally agree with you about Kate. She's a great option to murder. I don't think it'll be Lucy.
Yeah, yeah. I guess maybe also, I've just thought of this. Might they pick Kate because they think it'll throw the blame on Nick, and people go, "Oh well, Kate voted for you last night, and she was so. So did you murder her?" Maybe something like that. I really don't know. I'll go with Kate. I'll guess Kate.
Yeah. Okay. I'll stick with Nick.
How about banishment? I'm pretty sure we're not gonna get any recruitments this series. There only are 3 episodes left. And they just sort of don't need to do it now. Even if the next 2 banishments in a row are traitors, there'll still be one traitor left for the final episode, so they just don't need to. So I predict there's no recruitments. As for who's getting banished next, I'll just say Jonathan again. I'm going to say it every time. What do you think?
Same. I've said Jonathan since episode 2, I think. And you've got to be. I wrote down at the end of the round table, what a bunch of idiots, because I just can't believe that they haven't got him. It's staring them right in the face. But the thing now that I really hope, I love Jonathan. He's played a brilliant game. But I think the thing that hopes that it will get him out now, if they go with the BD theory, Stephen wasn't a traitor. Jonathan's got to be. So I'm with you, Stephen. Stephen's got to go. Sorry, Alan. Alan. Jonathan's got to go. Alan must not go.
Yes,
So yeah, I
surely.
agree with you, Jonathan. Yeah.
Surely, surely. And if it's Alan,
But
I'll
who knows?
be devastated. I,
Yeah.
I hope that even if some of the others do question Alan, that Jonathan and Kat will have his back and they'll try and defend him. I don't know. Don't know if it's enough.
Well, I don't.
Uh,
Well, I'll tell you what. I don't think Jonathan will. The only thing and again, this is conspiracy theories, is that I don't know whether you've watched, but Alan and Kat have been doing some on their social media, doing all these traitor, things at
yeah.
night together. So they kind of the hopeful part of me thinks, okay, they must be best buddies, so maybe they do get Jonathan out.
Hmm.
But that's just me being hopeful. So I don't know, but obviously I want Alan to get to the end.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do hope it's Jonathan.
Yes. We've got some more listener questions to have a chat about. Vinny sent, and as well as his prediction of Nick, he sent a question here. So Vinny asks, finally, what were the group eligible for murder thinking after the chess mission? They should have discussed amongst themselves that it would be in their best interest to banish someone from the winning group, because if someone from their losing team of five got banished, the odds of them being murdered went from 1 in 5 to 1 in 4. But it's worse than that, because if they thought that at least one of them was a traitor, which is very likely, and can't be murdered, it was actually a 1 in 4 of each of them being murdered, even with five people, and now it's a 1 in 3 chance after Stephen's banishment, because Jonathan can't be murdered. Nick really should have been campaigning with his team of five to banish someone on the winning team of five to better their odds of being safe from murder. I know that's quite complex, but I think I follow. Maybe they discussed this, but it didn't make the edit. So I hadn't thought of this, but yeah, should Nick have been saying, can we all just banish someone from that team that have shields? Because if he's so convinced there's, does that make sense? Think it makes sense?
Sense, and I think he could have done that, but as we've seen, they all just do their own thing anyway, don't they? There is a herd mentality in some of it, but we're seeing now in the last, certainly that the round table in episode 6, there was what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 1, 2, 5 different names out there. So maybe that wouldn't have worked anyway.
Yeah, yeah. I've got two emails from two different people called Steph here. So I got confused when I was making these notes. So this is from Steph P. Steph P emailed and said, do you think that given Jonathan won't have the opportunity to turn around and see Claudia, like the other non-murdered people in his group, his story will be inconsistent at breakfast the next morning, and that way the faithfuls will finally nail him? That's really interesting, and don't want to spoil the season if you've not seen it. There's another season where something like this happened. So yeah,
Yeah.
what Steph P is saying is Jonathan doesn't really need to go around and stand on the chessboard and turn round and Claudia's there. So what if the next morning someone says, "Oh, Jonathan, what was it like at the chessboard?" and he says something totally wrong that doesn't align with what the others say? I hadn't thought about this. Do you think that's a possibility, Jane? Do you think?
I did think about that, and the reason I did is because of the previous time we've seen it in another season, and so knowing that Jonathan's a super fan and presuming he's seen this other season it was in, I would have said if it was him, he probably insisted to go down there and at least look at what was happening. So that's what I would have done.
Yeah,
So, and if he didn't, yeah, she's right, there is potential for that to happen. But because I think if it had been anyone else, but because Johnson's a super fan, I think he'll have that covered.
yeah, yeah. And I would hope or assume that the production team tell him here's exactly what it's going to be like in case you're asked about it. So
Great question
probably
because,
won't. Yeah, it probably won't happen, but it would be. I mean, it would be great TV if it did happen. It would create a really shocking moment if Jonathan says something wildly untrue
yes,
that the others can
yeah,
misprove.
yeah.
The second Steph email is from Steph C, who asks, personally, oh, this has got maybe a bit of a spoiler for other series-ish. Well, the question doesn't, or answers might. So, this is a reference to series one of the very first series of UK Traitors, and this isn't a spoiler because this says something that happens like in episode 1, right? And also it was on like 3 years ago. So if you've not watched at this
Yeah.
point, Too bad. Personally, I always think Wilf from Series 1 gets overlooked as one of the all-time greats. He was the OG traitor to turn on other traitors and set the bar on some of the traitor tricks and schemes still used today. We also have to remember that the contestants in Series 1 had no idea about the game or how it worked, so almost had it doubly hard compared to later seasons. We'd love to know your all-time favourite traitor. And it says a couple of things that, yeah, I don't want to spoil anything. So, but the question is, do we have like an all-time, obviously apart from yourself, Jane, do we have an all-time favourite traitor? And this is the point where I'll say, if you've not seen other versions and you don't want us to name people you're not familiar with, just skip ahead like maybe 60 seconds or so. Any favourite traitors?
Was really good. To answer her question, I think Will gets forgotten about, but actually he was really good because it was in Series 1 and he got all the way to the end. So I think he did do really well. I don't know if I have a favourite traitor, to be honest. I have more favourite faithfuls, weirdly.
Yeah.
I have a few faithfuls that really stick out in my mind. So no, I really can't think of one that I would say. There's a few that have done really well, but not one that sticks out. How about you?
Yeah. I think generally any traitor who makes it all the way to the end and wins, I'm always just so impressed with. I think ones that stand out are Harry from UK Series 2, I just think was unbelievable from start to finish and really didn't put a foot wrong. I don't know how he pulled it all off. And I've got such a soft spot for this season in general, and I always talk to people about it. But Australia Series 1, the very first English speaking version, it broadcast before UK, was Alex, who became a traitor. And I
Yes.
just, she's been on the pod, interviewed her, and
Yeah.
very controversial for a lot of viewers, but I thought again, they had there wasn't a lot to go on. I mean, maybe they watched like the original Dutch version, but there weren't loads of series to watch and study and pick up tips. So the way that Alex played the game when it was her time, I was so blown away by. So yeah, Alex always stands out in my mind as an
Yeah,
amazing
no,
player.
I think you're right, and I think she's better. You know, I know everyone loves Harry, and it's not that I don't like him. He did really well, but he was helped by a clueless. Yeah, he won in part because of someone that was just
Hmm.
blinded by friendship, and I think that happened in my series as well. I'm not going to give any spoilers away to who won. So you're right with Alex. I completely forgot about her. So yeah, she's also up there as well. I agree with you.
Yeah, yeah. And there are, again, as always, there are other comments going on YouTube, people giving their thoughts, asking questions. So head over there if you want to see what other people are thinking of the show. Listeners, remember that Jane and I have been playing the Trade Our Traitor this whole time. We might even still be playing right now before we finish and conduct our own banishment. Jane, tell us where we can find you online. How can we follow you?
On Instagram, Jane Mass 444, and at the moment I'm just covering Celebrity Traitors with Silly Philly on Babes on the Brink. So a bit of a different podcast, a bit silly. Yeah, that's where you can find me.
Yeah, brilliant. And to make sure you're up to date with the podcast and Traitors news and updates, and sometimes a little video from me, you can follow on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at the Trader Podcast. And I haven't even mentioned it yet, but or I didn't mention it in the last episode, and I should have, as well as this being the 200th episode, the Traitors Canada has now begun. It started on the 22nd of October, so the podcast is covering that too. First episode is ready to be launched. David Bloomberg, who's often on the pod with me, is on hosting duties for episode 1, and I'll be joining from next week with David as well. So if you are
Brilliant.
watching Traitors Canada, the Trader is all over it. And of course, wherever you follow, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, send me questions, send me your thoughts. We'll include them in the pod. If you want to be heard, like James on the podcast, you can send a voice note to memo.fm/the podcast. And you can email me, like the two Stephs, at thetradarpodcast@gmail.com. And wherever you're listening, it's great to follow and subscribe and leave a nice review if you can. And if you want to support the pod and make sure that it keeps going, you could do a couple of things. You could either buy some wonderful merch at thetrader.redbubble.com, like this t-shirt, or you could visit the ko-fi.com page. That's ko-fi.com/Matthew Keeley, and you can put in a donation of any amount you choose, and you don't have to subscribe to anything. And thank you to everybody who's done that so far. It's really, really kind of you. Now it's time for us to carry out our own banishment as we conclude the Trader Traitor.
Ooh. Ah.
I'm going to take my shield off again, Jane, and hide it in one hand, just like the, what was it, the Chests of Chance?
Chests of Chance.
You have to guess which hand you think I'm holding the shield in.
Right hand. Your right hand.
This one?
Yeah, yeah.
It's not there! It's in this one. That means I get to pick whether I want to go first or second. I'll go second. I'm gonna make you go first and give myself a little bit more time. Jane, any idea what I may have lied to you about?
Right, I have a cop out here, in as much that I forgot about the lie until we literally came on air when you reminded me. So this is very rushed for me with my lie. And the only thing I picked up on you again is only one, and it was. You're very good at this, Matthew, now, you see. Last time I think I was close, but you're getting way too good at this. The thing I think you might have lied on was about when you were talking about Kate and when you said which TV programme she was on in the UK. I can't remember what you said, whether it was BBC Good Morning Britain or something. I think that was the wrong programme, but I don't know what programme she's on. That's the only thing I can think of. Please tell me I'm right.
I said that she was on Good Morning Britain, and she is on Good Morning Britain, and that wasn't a lie.
Oh no, damn it.
I have defeated you.
You have.
I thought I told quite a big lie this time, so I was really worried it was too obvious. So I'm really impressed I got away with it. My lie was, although I mean, it's a lie, but it's also something I predict could be true, but I did just make it up. I said that they filmed a whole third chess piece that was a snake, and someone got upset about it and they had to cut it out, and I asked someone at work and that was the secret teat. I just made all that up. I don't know if that's true or not.
True. I totally believed you. I 100% believed you, Matthew.
Sorry.
Oh my God, you're such a liar. Oh my God, I'm gutted. I totally believe that.
I mean, I do think there could be truth in that. Like, I wasn't lying when I said that I'm sure there was Claudia's voice dubbed over when she says, and it's the first to three wins. And I thought, I don't think she actually said that there. Something is off. So I do wonder if something was there was more.
Didn't they?
They did have a snake previously, yeah.
That's what threw me, you see. That's why I believed you. Oh my God, I'm hopeless at this.
But no snake this time. I'm going to guess your lie. I've got two guesses, and I don't really think either of them are the right one. I'll tell you what they both are, and then I'll tell you the one that I'm going to go for. You could have lied when your lovely dog came on screen and you said that your dog was 15 months old, and I thought maybe that's not true. Maybe your dog's younger or older than that. And then I was talking about the Stephen Lambert video that I watched, and you said, oh yeah, I saw that too. I thought that maybe you've not seen that. Maybe you just threw it in there and agreed with me. I'll go with that one. I think you haven't seen that video of Stephen Lambert. Is that your lie?
It's not my lie. I did see it.
I should have known.
My dog is 15 months old, so you were wrong on both. But my lie was pretty rubbish, to be honest. But but it was a lie, and I guess maybe you'll think it's not good enough. But so yeah, that was the truth. I said that at the after breakfast, I said that Nick had said he suspected Alan and Jonathan Ross, and he didn't. He said he suspected Kat and Jonathan Ross, and you actually did come back and say, oh, and he also suspected Kat. So I thought, oh, you've clocked me, but you did. So yes, at least I got it. So you're thinking way too complex in my life, Matthew. It's very basic. Very basic.
No, it worked. I just thought, oh, I just missed that. And it's the funny thing is, I've done the same thing on the pod with other people. So I've thrown in little things about the episode, and then the guest goes, "Oh, I just thought I was wrong and I hadn't heard it." So now I've fallen prey to my own trick.
Yeah.
So
Phew. Oh, I
well
got away with
done.
it. Well done.
We're both very dishonest and good liars. Uh,
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me again, Jane. It's always brilliant to
Thank
have
you.
you. Hope you have enjoyed talking about episode 6 with me today.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks. Keep up the great work, Matthew. It's brilliant. I love your podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm sure, I mean, it'd be great to have you back on again. And
It's always available. You know that.
brilliant, thank you. And thank you, listeners. Thanks for joining us. I'll be back with coverage of the next episode, episode 7, with a very special returning guest co host. And actually, everyone so far this season has been someone who's been on the pod before. Episode 8, we have a new co host who hasn't been on the pod before, but is going to be absolutely brilliant. And again, a wee reminder that Traitors Canada has begun, and the podcast is covering Traitors Canada Series 3 as well. Until then, laters, traitors.